On today's episode of the Cover 4 podcast, the guys will go over what is happening in the AFC title game. Obviously, we don't know the two teams matching up there, but big news after the Buffalo and Cincinnati game was canceled recently. As well, we'll look at the game-clinching, playoff-clinching scenarios that could happen in Week 18. Stick around for more. Welcome to the Cover 4 podcast. That's Bradshaw. That is Jeff. I'm Nolan. Guys, wanted to start off the show. Obviously, we all know what happened on Monday in that game against the Bengals and Bills. Horrible scenario. Let's fast forward to today, Friday. Much better news. Demar Hamlin. He's actually going to be calling the Bills players, FaceTiming them. He's breathing on his own ability, which is fantastic news, especially the scare that we saw on Monday where I'm sure all of us had never seen or experienced anything like that. But, it just, fantastic news that, he's progressing day in, day out. And I'm sure the Bills, team as a whole, that's going to be really special and heavy stuff for them to hear and see his face and hear his voice. I don't want to dive too, into that. Obviously, it was such a hard moment to watch for all of us. And hopefully we don't have to see anything like that again. But I did want to say, amazing that so many fans around the NFL and players and just organizations rallied around together, especially, his charity organization that I think the goal was $2,500. I don't even know where it's at now, 7 million or something ridiculous like that. It's really special to see people rally around in this sport, and, good to see that he's getting in better health. With that being said, obviously the game was canceled. We all know that, and with good reason. So that's going to have an effect on the AFC Championship potentially. Obviously, we know the Kansas City Chiefs are the top seed as of right now. The Bills and Bengals both are going to be without a game. That game's canceled. They're going to go by win percentage. So the Bills right now still have the upper edge. But I'm just going to go over the scenarios of if these teams are in the AFC title game, it's going to have to be at a neutral site, which is crazy to think, especially you talk about Arrowhead, you talk about, the Bills Stadium. Those are two of the best home field advantages in football. There's a chance that game could be played somewhere else. So let's go over it, guys. The first scenario, Buffalo, they're 12-3. Kansas City's 13-3. That's currently right now. If both win or tie in Week 18 and both teams advance to the AFC title game, that will be at a neutral site. I'm sure that's something we could end up seeing. We're going to talk about matchups in Week 18. Bills have the Patriots this week. Kansas City has Vegas on Saturday. So if both those teams win and both match up in the AFC title game, guess what? Neutral site. That's a really realistic, option that we have. Buffalo 12-3, Kansas City 13-3. If both lose and Cincinnati 11-4 loses or ties in Week 18, and let's say again, Buffalo, Kansas City advance to the AFC title game, of course, yep, that's a neutral site. Then Buffalo and Kansas City, if they both lose, and if Cincinnati wins in Week 18, and the AFC title game is either Bills and Chiefs or Bengals and Chiefs, neutral site. So really, not to jump ahead, it's going to depend what happens here in Week 18. But Bradshaw, your overall thoughts, obviously something had to happen. There was never going to be a perfect scenario. But just kind of crazy that this AFC title game could almost turn into like a bowl game scenario where it's at a neutral site.
Yeah, it does feel like it could be a college scenario where like you're playing, oh, let's meet up at the Georgia Dome, RIP the Georgia Dome, like, oh, we'll go to Atlanta and have the game there. Like it's so strange. I mean, obviously these teams are not especially the Bills in the last couple seasons are no stranger to like neutral site games. They had to play in Detroit earlier this season. And the Bills fan, Chiefs fan, probably the same way. They're going to travel regardless. They'll find a way to make it like their home stadium. But like, obviously there's a difference between like playing in Buffalo and you get to actually stay in your house and you get to, you're not traveling that far from the game as opposed to, okay, we got to travel. We got to like take a flight to wherever, like, let's just say it's in Atlanta. I don't know why. That's just where bowl games are in my mind. We'll go to Atlanta and then both teams have to stay at a stadium or stay at a hotel and then like travel there. It's such a strange feeling. And like, it just throws you off. Obviously it's going to make for a very competitive football game. And like, it kind of makes it more even in a sense. Like, you're not like, okay, the Bills played, but it also like almost tarnishes like the entire regular season for the Bills or the Chiefs or whoever it is, right? Like, you played 17 weeks in 16 games for the Bills and the Bengals. Like you played all these games and now now we don't actually, it doesn't actually matter for like the biggest game of our season, because the actual biggest game is going to be if you make it to the Super Bowl and you're playing a neutral site regardless. But like, what was the point of playing all these games if we didn't actually get home field advantage in the second biggest game, potentially the second biggest game of our season? Obviously there's no, like I said this to you guys last, there's no easy way to do this. Like there was no easy way to like make this fair for everybody. It's just a weird circumstance, and like they're not gonna move this. You can't move the Super Bowl, and you can't, like, you're not gonna push the playoffs back a week and like just have it bump up, have the NFC and AFC Championships games be a week before the Super Bowl. Like you're not gonna do that. So I get it. Like it's something that like they had to make a solution work, and like this is probably the best, most fair outcome. It's gonna be wild if this has to happen. It's gonna be nuts.
Jeff, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think like that is going to be interesting. I think from a fan perspective, it's going to be weird because usually those AFC NFC Championship games are like the ones where you hear like the loudest crowd volume, where like the tension is just insane. So I think obviously being on a neutral site, that's going to be very different. But yeah, for sure for the players, obviously, and like Bradshaw said, this is just a completely crazy circumstance. I feel like as players, to an extent, they got to be like, you know what, man, like we almost witnessed one of the most tragic things that could possibly happen on a football field. Can we be like, we can't be too mad? I mean, obviously, it's interesting too, because both these teams are kind of heading in opposite directions, where not completely, but the Bills were on top for so long and the Chiefs kind of started to eke them out a little bit. And then the Bengals were kind of on the rise. Like they had that rough start. And they probably almost thought, oh my God, we could potentially get the 1 seed. And it's not just the home field advantage too, but also the bye, right? The bye week would have been huge. I think that does gotta sting a bit for sure. And the fact is, I think I'm not 100% sure. I mean, obviously, really a lot is going to depend on what happens this week, but those two teams could be facing each other again. I think in a second round matchup, because it's likely that if the Chiefs got the 1 seed, that they're not going to be facing either one of those teams in the second round matchup, most likely, because both of these teams, I believe, should most likely get home field advantage. Obviously, the Bills already have it. Bengals pretty much should. Yeah, it's a crazy situation. And obviously, but the main thing at this point is like Demar Hamlin being healthy, and thankfully it looks like he's getting back to making a full recovery and everything.
Yeah, like this is like the last thing on their minds. Like they could, like right now, the Bills could give a shit about the number 1 seed. They don't, like who cares in the grand scheme of things. They had so many bigger things in their mind. Like it's just like from a football, like if you just compartmentalize for a second, like that's just what when we start talking about like the neutral field, that's when it starts to get like, oh shit, that's just strange. But obviously, yeah, they have bigger things to worry about.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
And you mentioned the home field advantage potentially for the Bengals there, Jeff. We don't necessarily know that as well, too, because this week, I believe, as of right now, the Bengals, they're AFC North champions, right? Just going off win percentage and all that. But if this weekend they lose to the Ravens would have beaten them twice and had the same amount of wins. So if they go by win percentage there, it's still a little tricky because the Bengals haven't played that one game. So they go a coin flip to see who gets home field. I believe that's the scenario. And Bradshaw, you may have to double check me on that, but there was a weird.
No, it'd be when they canceled the game, they clinched the division.
Correct.
Yeah, so they have the division.
So they have the division.
Yeah.
There was talks about in the playoffs if they match up again, right? Because then there'd be a 3 and 6 seed. Because right now I believe the Chargers are locked into the 5. That's it is a wild scenario. But like you guys mentioned, at this point it doesn't really matter. Hamlin's health, number one. And you mentioned it's the Bills players too. As long as he's healthy, they don't care. They're going to go, play for their teammate regardless, right? It doesn't matter where it is. So we wanted to get that off the bat, at the top of this episode. I do think it would be a really cool situation to see it sort of like the Rose Bowl, wherever that neutral site is, right? Have half the stadium, all the stands covered in blue, half the stadium in red, say it's Chiefs Bills. I think that'd be a really, really cool environment. And really awesome for all the fans traveling. Let's go to Week 18, though. Let's talk about these games and figure out who's going to match up where. So we have Saturday to start us off. We don't have to talk much about Chiefs-Raiders. That's going to be the first game. But off the bat, Chiefs, they will get the number 1 seed if they win that game. I believe the Chiefs are probably going to play all their starters and see where the score gets against the Raiders. The Raiders did play well last week against the Niners, but that is currently the scenario. The other game, that's a Saturday nighter. That's Titans, Jaguars. Whoever wins that wins the AFC South. Jags heavy favorites right now, and nearly a touchdown because Josh Dobbs is the starter there for the Titans. Jeff, you rolling with the Jags here?
Yeah, and I think I think we see this a lot where we have a late regular season match between two divisional teams and they both look very close. But I think, in terms of like the Jaguars just figuring out their team, they just look a lot better. Obviously, there's injuries to the Titans. We know that. We know they've had some quarterback issues. But I think at the end of the day, it looks like, just statistically and everything, Trevor Lawrence looks like he's becoming a very good quarterback. He's in the top 10 in EPA and CPOE composite. So I think, we're going to see a pretty good Jaguars offense. And also the Titans defense has not looked very good either. Like they obviously had that really good game against Patrick Mahomes where they look like, the Titans we've seen the last couple of years. But I kind of get this suspicion here that the Jaguars might actually have a good plan and run away with this game for the most part, because I don't think the Titans can move the ball unless it's with Derrick Henry. And defensively, they obviously have talent still, but I really think maybe we got to start looking at the Jaguars as like, maybe not Super Bowl contenders quite yet, but they look like a legitimate force. And I think that they could actually wrap this one up pretty easily. And I think it might be a pretty big statement win for them. Maybe not this season, but like as a franchise moving forward into the next thing, that they're a serious contender.
Bradshaw, you're on the same boat with the Jags over the Titans?
I'm yeah, for sure. I'm gonna take the Jags over the Titans. I'm just wary of I don't know. This just seems like a game where Mike Vrabel just gets his guys going and I don't always believe in this kind of stuff, but I don't know. He seems like such a good motivational coach and just seems to always have his guys ready. It just seems like they're, no matter the talent on that team, the last couple of years they haven't had a talented defense for the most part, like that Jeffrey Simmons and Kevin Byard, some talented players, but they just keep getting things done on both sides of the ball every year, despite us being man, this team isn't that good. Mike Vrabel just might be a really good coach, and that might be what the Titans need to get through a game and a divisional game that's going to be close, in my opinion. Divisional games just usually are. I'm going to take the Jags regardless. I think the talent's better. I think they're playing better, and I do not trust Josh Dobbs to win a crucial game. Also, really quick, Nolan, you were right that if the Bengals lose to the Ravens this week, they would win the division still, but they would still have to have a coin flip for who would host a home playoff game, despite the Bengals winning the division. That doesn't make any sense. It's just because they would have technically had a chance if the Bengals lost that game to the Bills, but who cares? They won the division. Why is that a thing? If we care so much about divisions, then they should have the home playoff game. Anyway, sorry, that the Jags are going to beat the Titans.
Yeah, well, that's a story for another day too, because that'd be pretty remarkable. If with Lamar back and if the Ravens end up hosting playoff game, that'd be crazy.
Despite not winning the division.
I know. I'm going to pick the Jags too. I'm saying I spoke it into existence. I said, hey, there's a chance the Jags can make a push here for the playoffs. Looks like that's going to be the case. Trevor Lawrence looks fantastic, but you mentioned Mike Vrabel and the Titans, and the only thing that scares me is Derrick Henry every single year has a game against the Jags where he just goes for 220. So I'm really praying this isn't the game. And because everyone's done seeing the Titans. We're done. Okay, they've had their chances. They've had their fun little years. The Jags are the team in the AFC South everybody wants, to start rolling. And I think it's a great story. Urban Meyer, that was an absolute nightmare last year. Lawrence looked horrible. This year, different story. Doug Peterson has them rocking and rolling. They've got some really young players who look promising. And Zay Jones' career year, Christian Kirk, we all laughed at the contract. It's still not great, but he's playing well too. Evan Ingram, we thought that was a bad signing. He's having a fine year at tight end. I don't know. It's just a weird year here for the Jags, but I do love it. So I'm going to take the Jags as well. I'm sure Luka would be in the same boat. Sunday's where all the chaos begins. So let's get started. Jets, Dolphins. A few weeks ago, you wouldn't think that the Dolphins needed to win to get into the playoffs. They had won 5 straight. They've lost 5 straight. Obviously, there's more concern at the quarterback position there, whereas Tua's not going to be playing. Been dealing with the head injury. Teddy's not going to be playing. I believe it's a hand injury or a thumb injury. So it's Skylar Thompson against not Zach Wilson, not Mike White. I believe it's Joe Flacco rocking and rolling there for the Jets.
Jesus Christ.
So in this scenario, Dolphins they're in the playoffs if they win and the Patriots lose. Let's start off with the Dolphins and the Jets, though. Bradshaw, who you rolling with here in kind of a toss-up of a game?
I'm probably taking the Jets, to be honest with you. Like I trust Joe Flacco more. Like, that's a weird thing for me to say. I do not like Joe Flacco, but when he's played, he's been he's been fine enough. Like he hadn't been as good as Mike White, but he'd been much better than Zach Wilson. And I think the Jets defense is talented enough that they can slow down. I get they have a lot of talented pieces on offense in Miami, but Skylar Thompson is just awful. He just is not very good. I don't think the Dolphins defense is good enough to slow down the Joe Flacco led offense of the New York Jets. I don't know. This is gonna be a crap game. But yeah, I think I trust the Jets a little bit more just because their quarterback is marginally better.
And the Jets aren't playing for anything, right? They're just kind of playing for pride. Jeff, the Jets or the Dolphins?
I don't know. I really think this seems like a horrible matchup for the Dolphins, doesn't it? I mean, like the Jets defense is good enough to me that like they can create some problems for them. And obviously Tua has not been very good. I think they said that he has no concussion symptoms or anything like that, or he passed a concussion test. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It seems a little bit shady. Call me crazy, but it seems a little bit shady. I hope it really isn't. I really hope he's okay, but he just hasn't been playing like the guy that we saw earlier. It's such a different change. It's not like his ankle is hurting that we know of or anything like that. It's not anything like that. Like it looks like he's not making the right reads anymore, and that's like one of the things you 100% expect to to do, and he's not doing it. And whatever the reason is for that against this Jets defense, that cannot happen. That really, really cannot happen. But like Bradshaw said too, we can't discredit the fact that like whenever Zach Wilson's not playing, the Jets offense looks kind of competent, just enough. And I honestly, the Dolphins defense is okay, but we've seen some lapses with them too, right? Against like lesser quarterbacks, well, maybe not lesser. I don't think Justin Fields is lesser than Joe Flacco, but that offense generally is probably quite lesser, honestly, talent-wise than the New York Jets. And the Dolphins struggle against them too. It really seems like this is like an epic choke job by the Dolphins. Crazy to think since we saw them just tearing through the NFL the first part of the season. But I'm going to go with the Jets here. I just feel like it's all on their side right now.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Jets too. We saw this game a few weeks ago as well. Oh, not a few weeks ago, earlier in the season. Tua was out. Teddy came in. Teddy got injured on the first snap of the game. Skylar Thompson played the rest of the game, and I think the Jets put up 40. And that was basically them just running the ball, and Dolphins couldn't get anything going on offense. The only way the Dolphins win this game is if they just give the ball to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and say, just run as fast as you can. Because, this offense is going to look really sloppy, and the Jets D is quite talented. So I think the Jets will play spoiler. We are all on the Jets there. So now let's go Patriots, Bills. Bills still probably going to play most of their starters. Well, I guess that's a different question too. If the Chiefs win on Saturday, Chiefs get the 1 seed, Bills would be, I believe, locked into the 2 seed at that point.
I think so.
Because it wouldn't matter Bills, Bengals anymore, because we were wondering that heading into that Monday Night Football game because it was head-to-head who would leapfrog for the 2 seed. Wouldn't matter at that point. So I wonder if they play most of their starters regardless. But Patriots and Bills, Patriots are in with a win, a Dolphins loss and a Steelers loss. So we're already saying the Dolphins are losing. I still think I'm going to take the Bills. Sorry, Luke. I'd fucking hate to see the Patriots in here. Man, are they horrible. Their offense sucks. And sure, their defense has talent and, I would hate to see them. Give me a new, but the thing is, I'm like saying, give me a new team. And we're saying the Dolphins are out. And if I want the Patriots out, then the Steelers are next up, which would be just as bad. But I think the Bills are good enough, even if they play a half of their starters to shut it out there. And I think they're going to be really motivated to kick some ass and, make sure Patriots don't get in the playoffs. So I'm going to take the Bills in that one. Bradshaw, what about you?
I'll probably take the Bills. I feel like Even if you play most of your starters for even if you play your starters for most of that game, they'll be fine. Even if you just give them a half, they should be okay. The Patriots offense is so bad. Like Matt Patricia is just what the fuck? What the fuck are they doing, man? We're this late in the season, and I'm still asking. I have no idea why this happened. I don't think anybody has any idea why this happened. Like the best thing for the Patriots, like the biggest thing they can do this offseason is just letting somebody else letting an actual competent offensive coordinator call the plays. Like just bring in literally anybody. Like I hated Dirk Cutter as the Falcons offensive coordinator. That would make more sense. He would call a more competent offensive game plan than this. I'll probably take the Bills. I really don't I don't want to see any of these teams get in. Like maybe the Dolphins just if like Tua's like healthy, but like I don't want him to play another game ever again. Like I just think he probably shouldn't be playing football anymore. I don't want the Patriots in. I don't want the Steelers in. Both those teams are terrible. I wish there was a way to get if the Jags lose and the Titans win, there is a way to get both the Jags and Titans in, and I'd rather have the Titans in than the Steelers and Patriots. So
how would that happen? All three have to lose in order for the Jags?
there's a way where if there's there's a bunch of 8 and 9 teams, there'd have to be a wild scenario where that would happen, but it could happen where there's 7, 8, and 9 teams, which would lead to the Jags and Titans both being in, and I would rather have that than have the Steelers or the Patriots or a Tua-led or Tua-less Dolphins team make the playoffs. Though again, the Tua-led team would be good just for my own personal and Tua's personal peace of mind. I don't want him to be playing any games anymore. I think he should stop. But he'll probably play if they make the playoffs. So I'd rather have the Dolphins make the playoffs. I just think they're going to lose that game because Skylar Thompson's a bad quarterback.
Jeff, Bills or Patriots here?
The one thing that does give me a little bit of pause is if the Bills offense is only going to play, let's say a half or something, it's that's the best defense in the NFL right now in the Patriots. Mm-hmm. They are, and they have given good offenses a really, really tough time. Even the Bengals have struggled a little bit against them. But of course, when you got Matt Patricia for whatever, unknown reason is calling plays for an offense, just the most baffling decision I've ever seen. Anything can happen. Really, a lot can happen. And also, too, can't discredit the Bills. The Bills defense is also really good. But part of me just thinks that the Patriots will just eke this one out because I think it'd be best for the Bills to rest their players and essentially kind of give themselves a bye in that way. Just don't play so much and kind of give yourself some rest for the playoffs and then go in there, in a rhythm and everything. And I think that would actually help them the most. So maybe just tank this game and just accept the fact that you got one of the best seeds in the AFC. And that's really what matters most at this point for you.
Alrighty. So the other option is Cleveland, Pittsburgh. Steelers are in with a win and both Patriots and Dolphins losing. Pittsburgh still looks really bad. Cleveland hasn't looked good of late, but they had a decent game last week where they're actually able to move the ball passing wise, which is surprising seeing as who their quarterback is, but that's a story for another day. Jeff, are you going with the Browns or the Steelers to make the playoffs here?
I think, you know what? We got to start talking about Kenny Pickett as a really good backup level quarterback.
Thank God. I was aware the hell you go. Jeff, I swear to God, 2 late wins does not make him a good quarterback.
Well, you know what? Justin Herbert, he's right on his tail. Let me tell you that. No, I'm kidding.
My God.
But you know what?
Maybe in the race for best hair quarterback. Sure.
He does have some nice hair. He's got that going for him. So, but no, I think he is actually, he's okay. He's not as abysmal, I think, as some other quarterbacks in the league, to be honest with you. Yeah, the offense isn't perfect, and obviously, God knows, the Browns generally are not very good right now either. But it does seem like this is a game that the Steelers should be able to win. They should be able to come away with it, despite the fact that their rushing offense has been really, really good. Some good teams have been able to slow them down or outright just kind of stop them, right? So I think I'll go with the Steelers in this one, but will they make the playoffs? Having said all that, it doesn't seem like it, and especially based on what we're all saying, I think.
Bradshaw?
Oh, God. I don't want the Steelers to make the playoffs. I don't want the Patriots to make the playoffs. But in the scenario I've now concocted for myself where the Jaguars win, the Patriots lose, the Dolphins lose, It really is. It's one of these two teams, and I really don't want either of them to make it. Can we just like? I don't even like. There isn't even a team. Like again, can I just like sub them out and like? Can we just sub them out and have the Titans play instead? Like, even though I don't want to see. I don't know if I said I wanted to see them play more, but like, do I actually? I don't know if I
So
actually want that either.
Browns are eliminated, but I just looked at it and I believe it goes by conference winning percentage. So if the Titans beat the Jaguars, all those teams are 8 and 9, but the Jaguars have the least amount of losses in the AFC. So I believe the Jaguars would be the 7 seed.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the scenario I've concocted now, the scenario I've predicted would have the Jaguars winning that game.
Yeah.
So now I'm stuck in a rock and a hard place where the Patriots or the Steelers are making the playoffs. I think I would rather have the Patriots make it. So just I don't even care because I don't care who this game's too close for me to really care about. I think I'd rather the Patriots make it just based on like their defense is amazing, and I think Bill Belichick would give whatever quarterback he plays a tough time. Their offense would score maybe 3 points. They'd have to rely on their defense to score maybe 14 points and maybe get a special teams Marcus Jones touchdown. I'm going to say at that point, I'd rather have the Browns win that game and keep the Steelers out of the playoffs because I don't want to see Kenny Pickett in the playoffs. I think that would be insane. I think people, oh, well, look, this justifies taking him in the first round, even though he's a terrible quarterback. I think I just might rather have the Patriots make it. So at that point, just give me the Browns and just let the Patriots get in and make it a little bit more competitive in the first round, even though I'm going to hate that game.
I know it's gonna suck. I think the Browns win this, and I was listening to Mina Kimes' podcast, and Phil Yates made a good point. And even though kind of everybody's on the same boat of like whatever about the Browns, they're kind of gross, but they have to find some way to make it look like it was worth making the trade and paying the massive contract and make their offense look decent because it hasn't looked like that until last week where we saw some moments. So I think they're going to be playing their hearts out, which is whatever. Steelers are just bad. I just cannot. It would just blow my mind if this team got in when we thought they were going to be drafting the top 5 and somehow scraped a couple wins together here. So I guess somehow the Pats are going to get in, which would be again another gross scenario. Let's hop to the NFC though. This is where it gets a little funky. I'm going to briefly talk about the Eagles here because we have Giants, Eagles. Eagles win. They are the top seed, right? The Giants could play spoiler. Giants are locked in to the 5 seed, so it doesn't really matter, or the 6 seed for that matter. So it doesn't really matter what they do. They could bench everybody, and Eagles win regardless. Now it could get a little funky if the Eagles lose and the Niners win, which I guarantee you the Niners will win because it's against David Blau in the Arizona Cardinals, who are an absolute mess. So that could be a scenario the Niners would clinch the top seed at that point. Cowboys get the top seed if the Eagles and the Niners lose. I believe Cowboys are going to win. It's against Sam Howell, even though Carolina guy. We'll see what happens. I just think there's no way that the Niners somehow lose to David Blau and the Cardinals. So I don't even want to talk too much about that scenario. The way it looks for us, Eagles would be the top seed, and then Niners would be the 2, and then Cowboys locked into the 5 and the top wildcard spot. But let's talk more about what the other big scenario. Rams, Seahawks. Seahawks are in with a win and a Packers loss. That's a 425 game. Seahawks have looked kind of rough down the stretch. A decent game last week where they were able to move the ball a little bit on that Jets defense. Bradshaw, you taking the Rams or the Seahawks in that one?
I think I'd probably take the Rams, to be honest with you. I think the Seahawks are kind of in a rut. I think Baker actually looks half decent. Like they look competent with him at quarterback, which is like all you really need to beat this version of the Seahawks right now. As much as I would love to see Geno make the playoffs, that'd be awesome. I just think that they've faltered way too much down the stretch. Like they just have not looked very good. So yeah, give me the Rams in that game, and that would set up a legit win and you're in for the Lions and Packers. It still baffles me a little bit that they didn't just make the Titans. The Titans Jags game is a legit win and you're in. Yeah. Like this game, the Lions Packers, it's win and you're in for the Packers regardless. But like I'd rather have like win and you're in for both teams. But it's going to rely on like if the Rams lose, the Lions are like, well, nothing for us to play for now except for trying to get the Packers out of the playoffs, which doesn't really motivate you as much as like, hey, we can actually make the playoffs. I just wish they had a legit 1 year in game, but that's why I almost hope the Rams win, so we get that scenario in the Sunday Nighter.
Jeff, are you going with the Rams to move the ball on the Seahawks' putrid defense, or are you going to take Geno and the boys?
I think the Rams actually look pretty okay. So like I kind of trust them a little bit to do this. And this might actually be kind of an exciting game, in like even just self-contained, I think it might be pretty exciting. Baker looks pretty good with Sean McVay. So that's also pretty cool to see. Baker Mayfield isn't actually, terrible. He's not completely washed. Seems like he might actually be able to stay in the league with some decent enough coaching. So that is I think that makes it a pretty interesting matchup. I do kind of hope we see like the early part of the season, Geno Smith. I think that'd be great.
Mhm.
And it would just make this a really, really fun game. But I'll go with the Rams in this one. I think they're kind of finishing the season pretty strong.
All right, I'm gonna go with the Rams too. I think that, Cam Akers running the ball. I think they'll, Seahawks can't stop the run to save their life. So I do think there's a scenario there, and the Rams aren't really playing for anything, but because they don't have a first round pick. So I think that would be fun. That sets us up with the win in your in scenario Sunday Night Football. Lions, Packers. Jeff, who are you rocking with?
I'm gonna go with the Lions. Going with the Detroit Lions, just because it's just a nice feel good team. Honestly, I feel like how can you? It's tough to root against those guys, man. I think you're kind of a jerk if you do, unless obviously you're a Packers fan. Of course you will. And yeah, sure, they're in the division. I root for the Bears with obviously, but nothing to play for. I really like what the Lions are doing. Kind of it gives Dan Campbell an extra year to figure things out. So yeah, let's go with the Lions in a tight game.
Bradshaw?
Oh, well, when you have one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and when you have he's on a run, this is a special performance by Aaron Rodgers and the Packers yet again. This is one of the most storied franchises in the National Football League. I'm gonna pick the Packers, but like I don't feel good about it. Like I don't think they look that good. Rodgers was good for like 3 weeks. I like how like the week before the bye and the 2 weeks coming out of it. Then he looked like crap last week and they won anyway against the Vikings, which is your problem. But yeah, Packers taking the win in this game.
Okay, split decision here. So Bradshaw's going with his former top 10 quarterback from our
Still top 10. Come on.
Still top 10.
Come on.
So you're going with the Packers. Jeff's going with the Lions. I'm saying there's no way I can truly say in my heart I would ever go with the Packers in a win and in scenario. I think the Lions, even like it, and the Lions had that really brutal game against Carolina where they got the boats raced off them. But I think the Lions and Dan Campbell are going to be rocking and rolling in this one. Yes, the Packers defense looked pretty decent against the Vikings. Their special teams obviously stepped up in a big way against the Vikings. Their offense still wasn't anything special. Right. And the Vikings defense is one of the worst in football. Aaron Jones had a great day. Rodgers didn't do anything, ordinarily fantastic. The Vikings, a lot of turnovers, a lot of tip balls that would just end up in the hands of, defenders. So I would say I think the Lions have a really good chance to make this a close game. And somebody on that defense just has to make a play. And I really think, Aiden Hutchinson's been coming on of late. And I think a great play, and he was great against when the Lions beat the Packers earlier this year. I think it's going to come down to the wire, but I'm going to take the Lions. And I think a lot of people would love to see the Lions make it into the playoffs. What a cool story, and it's a team that really deserves to, be on the up and up. And I think we're kind of sick and tired of seeing the Packers anyway. And
are you telling me one of the oldest franchises in the NFL doesn't deserve to make the playoffs? That Aaron Rodgers doesn't deserve to make that isn't just going to be handed to him on a silver platter? Like the Lions are just going to sit there. Aaron, please go ahead, take our playoff spot. We just want you to get into the playoffs, Aaron. Fuck the Green Bay Packers, even though I think they're going to win. Even
if Seattle wins, I think Detroit's going to be like, we don't want them in. Like we do not want this team in. And there's a part of me that wants to see the Packers get in and lose again to the Niners. And
that'd be fun too. I would love that.
It'd just be a dream.
Yes.
But I want to see the Lions. I think it's a cool story, and I think it makes a question. Do you hold on to Jared Goff next year? Because obviously the Lions are going to have a top 5 pick as well, obviously with that Rams pick. So it should be interesting. But I'm going to go the Lions in the win and in scenario. So it should make for a wild Week 18, and we'll have that all wrapped up for you and more after Week 18 and give you our playoff predictions next week. And hopefully we got Luca on that episode. This is the Cover 4 podcast. That's Bradshaw. That's Jeff. I'm Nolan. See you guys soon.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Lingo Sports and Lingo News for a whole lot more just like this.